I do have a thought on the Douglas Murray-Dave Smith debate, which is that I actually think that Douglas Murray had a very good jab in when he said, have you been to Israel? That's actually kind of a funny question that Dave Smith has dedicated apparently so much commentary to Israel. He's never been there.
Have you been to the crossing points?
No,
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
And everyone reacted to that and said, oh, what a fallacy. What a stupid question. Actually, no, that was kind of a good jab in that debate. What do you think?
I didn't find it good at all. Murray offers commentary about all sorts of places he's never been. There's nothing transformative or immediately insightful about visiting a place. I just think it was like empty rhetoric. Yeah, it doesn't give you any more expertise necessarily to go visit a place.
I think it does. Could I say anything really about California not having been there besides studying it in a textbook? Could you say anything about Texas? Could I can speak about New York City because I've been there so many times. I was born there. I live there. And if someone who's never been is trying to make a characterization about New York City with which I don't agree, I would have to kind of take the high ground there and say, actually, you've never been there.
I don't see why that's the high ground, because I don't see the increased level of knowledge that comes with necessarily visiting a place. So if you were to offer me, on the one hand, somebody who's read 100 of the most scholarly, esteemed books on California versus someone who has read, say, half as many, but visited the place, I would expect that the person who's read more scholarly work would have a sharper, more accurate and valuable perspective on California, despite not visiting it, compared to the person who has visited it but hasn't read the work.
Right.
Many people don't.
But what if they both read 6 books and one person?
Right. All things being equal, yeah. If things were equal
Right.
and one person had visited, then I would expect the person to visit to have a little bit more clarity. But I believe that that scholarship and just solid journalism are close enough of an approximation to reality that you can learn a great deal from them without having visited a place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how transformative has it been for you
Yes,
to visit
and
a place?
I agree in principle. Go from just having a vague idea of a place to an actual experience, a tangible experience. It's really just 100% difference. But I get your point is taken. However, just the kind of indignant response that Dave Smith had in the moment struck me as a little silly because, again, it was a good jab. It was a good point. Like, you keep pontificating about this place you've never been. And number two, the kind of secondhand commentary that came from that, as though that were the most absurd point that you can make. I don't think it is an absurd point. I think it's kind of funny. And I use a boxing metaphor because it was like a jab that he didn't see coming. So I'm not saying that Douglas Murray won or lost the debate. I think he's probably better at debating.
It reminds me of a jab used about sports commentators who'd never played the game. So Howard Cosell titled one of his memoirs, "You Never Played the Game," because Howard Cosell was a leading sports commentator, but he was never an athlete. And so there are advantages for the commentator who has played the game, and yet there are many excellent commentators who never did play the game. So in the final analysis, when it comes to argumentation, I don't think there is anything more important than checking the facts and the logic of an argument. And compared to those two criteria, nothing else comes close. Now, this is not the way that we operate in the real world, because that requires effort, and we simply don't have the effort to put into all sorts of different questions, and so we use different heuristics. But if you're going to publicly engage in a debate, then I think one is best served by putting one's primary emphasis on facts and logic. And facts and logic are not terribly swayed with regard to, say, the Arab-Israeli conflict or any other hot-button issue on the basis of whether or not someone has been to a place.
No. Well, and I think, I maintain that it does, but another element of it is that international travel is like really expensive and difficult, and you kind of have to really have it together and have, I don't know, a good career or paid vacation or something. So it's a lot easier to pontificate about subjects than it is to travel internationally. Like for example, if you wanted to be an expert on the French language and you wanted to be a French teacher, it kind of is a little bit of a shot to your credibility if you've never been to France. It's a similar situation. Now, like if Luke Ford wants to talk about Israel, I wouldn't hold it against you that you've never been there.
Well, I have been there twice, yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So you're proving my point. So, but if what Douglas Murray says is true, that Dave Smith's career is like focused around criticizing Israel, I don't know if that is true or not, then it is kind of funny that he's never been there.
So what do you suspect for people who have very strong opinions on the Arab-Israeli conflict? What percentage of the time do you think their opinions are changed by a visit on the ground to the conflict? My suspicion is that 99.99% of people don't change their opinions on the conflict by visiting.
No, probably not. So that's a fair point. But I would just think that I like the word I just used, credibility. I think it would just affect one's credibility as it's one thing to just be like a political pundit, and it's one of many things you talk about. But if you put yourself forth as a kind of self-styled expert on a particular region, I would think you would want to be there.
Right. So there is a level of expertise that is way outside of the Douglas Murray, Joe Rogan, Dave Smith discussion. These are three non-experts having a conversation. But if you're an academic or someone who has devoted your life to the French language or to Israel or to Palestine or to China, then it would seem weird if, one, you weren't literate in the primary languages of the place, and two, if you'd not been there.
Exactly. I think we've come to a place of agreement. That's pretty much how I see it.